The popular resistance to Putin's invasion has been immense. The Ukrainian government has been arming citizens. This footage shows civilians in Kyiv taking up arms to defend the city. According to the Ukrainian ambassador to the UK, some 18,000 weapons have been distributed so far. Ukrainians have also been making stockpiles of less conventional weapons. We've seen Molotov cocktail making workshops held in towns and cities across the country. And a brewery in Lviv has switched from making beers to making bombs.
We send them to our barricades in Lviv. We are trying to send as many as we can to the areas near Lviv. We send some to Kyiv too. I hope they get there because we later learned that a bridge en route has been blown up. There should be no bloodshed. But what they're doing now is beyond war. It is war terror. It is impossible to describe. I have a lot of friends in other places, and the stories they tell me are simply horrific. It is a horror that must be stopped. The best way to stop it is not arms and more bloodshed, but words. But if words do not work, we will use everything. We will either be victorious or there will be total collapse, capitulation. Capitulation is not acceptable. After capitulation, they will face partisan war. There is no way they can win. They can only win if they destroy us all, and this is not possible.
Physical resistance is being combined with the symbolic kind. Ukrainians in Berdyansk, in the southeast of the country, were filmed singing their national anthem to occupying Russian troops. Paul, how much do you think this resistance matters? Obviously, it's really inspired everyone, across Europe and the world. It's clearly surprised Vladimir Putin as well. The worry, though, in a way, would be that, the stronger the resistance, the stronger the fight back.
Yes, and I think that it would be normally in Vladimir Putin's character, and more weapons of different sorts would be used. I mean, you mentioned there has been some use of thermobaric weapons already. That is not surprising. It's a weapon system which particularly of use, if I can use that term, in shelters, in bunkers and the rest. Russia produces quite a number of different sorts, so do the Americans. Britain doesn't produce thermobaric weapons, but we buy them from the Americans. We've used them in Syria. But they are very effective in certain circumstances. Basically, in urban warfare, they can be really devastating. That's an indication. But you found that in the more recent Iraq war in 2003, when the US forces came under very heavy fire, sniper fire and the rest, they used huge firepower in return. You might get, a building from which a sniper is operating. They'd just call in air power and destroy it. So that is a kind of pattern of war which is true in virtually any conflict, and certainly would be true even more so in Grozny, in the Second Chechen War. So that is the way that Putin would go. But the problem is that even he, or certainly the people around him, will recognize the way the international mood is changing. And if he doesn't, then the Chinese will. And essentially, I think it's going a lot wider, quite apart from all the other moves being made against Russia, which may well have an effect given time. This is almost at the sort of psychological level that essentially Putin has made a mistake, we think, and it's going to be very difficult to get out of that without losing face, which means, incidentally, that the one thing you have to do, and it goes against the grain, is if there can ever be negotiations, there have to be some concessions from this side, from the Ukraine side. That is not appeasement. That is basically what has to be done in these circumstances, because we got ourselves into a heck of a mess. And at least in part, that was the way that Russia was treated in the 1990s, which had a very big effect on the people of Putin's generation.
So do you see any kind of path to negotiations? Obviously, there were some in Belarus today. They appear to have broken down.
Well, I don't at the moment, but I think we've actually got to be very realistic about what the alternative would be. As of now, I think the most likely forecast is that the Russians, given no change in attitude and no change in negotiating possibilities, they will increase their forces, bring in more troops, and ensure by some means or other, Kharkiv and also Kyiv will be taken, eventually Kyiv as well. That basically they will then face all kinds of opposition, partisan right through, but clearly from the Ukraine military and maybe even units of the Air Force. And that is going to be dragging them down. And then you will have all the popular opposition as well. You will also have essentially more and more support, physical support, including light arms of particular kinds, coming in from the very wide Polish border alone, if not some of the other borders. So, in other words, one will get into a very deep, very grim war. I don't think the Russians, even they, will be able to, the Russian army, I have to be very careful here. We are not talking about the Russian people. I think the Russian armed forces will probably even have to draw back from wreaking the kind of destruction they did on Grozny, which was absolutely appalling. And so the problem is you will get somebody like Putin, if there isn't a change, he really will get more and more frustrated and angry and use stronger and stronger methods. And that is when the worst could happen. That will be some sort of ultimatum to people putting the supplies in through the Polish border, saying to them, you either stop or we will really seriously escalate. That obviously would mean the risk of small-scale tactical nuclear weapons. I don't think we're anywhere near that, and I don't think there's any great risk of a nuclear confrontation now. But that would be where we would be. So it's a long-winded answer to your question, Michael. What I'm saying is there has to be another way found, and that way does have to involve some kind of negotiations, bringing other people in, bringing the UN in, and also using all the back channels, and Beijing may be important in this, to convince leaders within and around Putin that there has to be some sort of way found, and implying that some sort of compromise can be reached, even though it may take a very long time, because the alternative is essentially an utter disaster all round.